Last year, a 19-year-old girl, known to the world only as ST, was told that she was delusional for wanting to fight for her life rather than have her life-sustaining treatment withdrawn. Only after her death was ST named as Sudiksha Thirumalesh and her story properly told. Sudiksha had been struggling with a degenerative mitochondrial disorder and was hoping experimental treatment in Canada could save her life. But doctors from the University Hospital's Birmingham NHS Foundation Trust said that it was in her best interests that life-sustaining treatment be withdrawn. This week, though, in a landmark ruling, the Court of Appeal overturned the decision of the Court of Protection, which declared that Sudiksha lacked mental capacity to make decisions about her medical treatment. I'm joined now by human rights lawyer and legal counsel to the Christian Legal Centre, Roger Kiska. Thank you, Roger, for making time for us.
Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
Roger, when this story was brought to my attention last year, I thought it couldn't be true. As a minute, I thought that can't be right. That can't be happening to a person who is of age, has been declared medically sound by independent psychiatrists. She wants to keep on fighting, and she's been told that's no longer her decision to make. And yet that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it blows the mind, really. This was a young lady who was successfully completing her A-levels. She had the strength and the will to live. She had said all along that she wants to die trying to live. She was well aware of the pain, the suffering, because she was going through it, yet she still wanted to live and get that treatment in Canada. She had 2 consultant psychiatrists vouch for her competency. There was no psychiatrist on the other side saying she wasn't competent, yet the Court of Protection took the side of the clinicians and not the psychiatrists, merely because she wouldn't accept their diagnosis. And that alone, they suggested, was a sign of mental incompetence.
Exactly. I mean, it beggars belief that all this time later, a subsequent decision has been made that, well, no, that was a mistake and she was right all along. That decision of the Court of Protection at the time, did that set a kind of precedent? Or was that already a precedent that was there based on, previous decisions?
Well, I mean, it's a good question, because the Court of Appeal kind of gives a mixed message on that, saying that the Court of Protection was following precedent, but it was doing so in a sense incorrectly. And so they reset what the precedent should be, and that is that the Mental Capacity Act provides a presumption of mental capacity that has to be overturned. And in this case, it wasn't. I mean, the issue is the Court of Protection is so secretive. And Sudiksha was one person who was willing to raise her voice and make some noise. We don't know how many other families have gone through exactly the same. So what this judgment does, what this new precedent does, is she will help all the people in the future who disagree with their doctor's choice to remove their care, and they'll have their own choice and the presumption of mental capacity.
Bear with me, Roger, while I turn to my guest in the studio as well, Jasmine. It begs the question, have we really reached a point where others in positions of authority are more empowered to make decisions about our lives and deaths than we are?
Yes. Even
when we have been declared of sound mind.
Yeah, and I think it is, and it's a very worrying trend. And it does feel to me part of another worrying trend, which is towards euthanasia rather than life. And we're seeing this across the West, particularly in places like Canada. But on Friday, the Lords were discussing the potential to bring in a law where if you've been given 6 months to live, you can automatically have state-assisted suicide. Now, that, if that's allowed, and I totally understand people wanting to have that, but if that is put in law, that opens the doors to all sorts. I mean, you can have doctors having a little bit of pressure put on them going, we need some more beds. And then they can sort of make a pronouncement that it's going to be 6 months. And it may be true, it may not be. Doctors are regularly wrong and regularly do things that they shouldn't do. So all of this, I think it's like being presumed guilty before being found innocent. We should be promoting life before promoting death.
I think the question that really troubles me most of all is who benefited from making a decision that a 19-year-old woman who had been declared of sound mind by 2 independent psychiatrists, who benefited from that determined, secretive decision that she would be better off dead, and that decision was made for her by others? Who, cui bono?
It's a tragic question, and I just, it makes me think, how dated do the people involved in that case have to be that they can't even understand that someone would want to live, that their presumption is that it's better to die? Why didn't they take hope away from that young lady who was so courageous in wanting to live? And I agree with you. In all of these cases that I mentioned, it's just tragic. It leaves you jaded and wondering, what is up with the world we live in today?
I dread to think how her family must have reacted to this. In some ways, hearing that the mistake was made that led against her wishes to the death of your daughter or your sister or whoever, hearing that was a mistake is almost worse. I can imagine you'd almost want to be reassured that the right decision was taken. But after the death, to be told, oh, we shouldn't have done that, that's the worst outcome. How on earth do they internalise that and find a way ahead?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll do it right here and right now. I'm calling on the government to open an inquiry into her death, into the Court of Protection, how these procedures are used we don't have de facto euthanasia in this country, but this is de jure euthanasia. Let's make no qualms about that, and there should be an inquiry open as to why that's possible in this country.
Roger Kiska, I will only and always have questions about what happened to that young woman, but thank you very much indeed for making the time and making plain some of what happened in the last year or so. Thanks very much.
Thank you.